Welcome to the Ministry Mix podcast, where we're bringing you real conversations for the souls and strategies of ministry leaders. I'm Phil Gifford, and I'm out of breath, but I'm joined by my co-host, Richard Pope.
Hello.
Whether you're a seasoned pastor or ministry leader or just stepping into leadership for the first time, we're here to share stories, insights, and practical tips to help you lead strategically while caring for your soul. Each one of our episodes, we dive into topics that matter to your mission, your calling, and your personal growth. Today's topic is going to be a bit of a conversation, but we're going to talk about the music and the songs that have influenced our lives and shaped us. So thinking through in many ways how just the soundtracks of our souls have hit at different seasons. Is that cheesy to say?
I think that's appropriate.
Yeah.
And we don't edit this podcast. Yeah, I think it's interesting. Music has this unique ability to speak not just to our soul, but to our mind. Even I think, if humans, there's like this Greek idea, humans are mind, body, soul. I think music has the ability to speak to all three parts of our identity. Music can make us dance. Music can make us weep, but music also, I think, can be a deeply enriching spot for our soul just to rest. So I think that's cheesy, but also appropriate. By the way, I love cheese. Comment when you listen to this. What is your favorite type of cheese?
Okay.
I'm definitely a Gouda guy.
Really?
Yep.
Smoked Gouda.
What's your favorite type of cheese?
It really just
This isn't what we're talking about, Phil. We gotta
why are we on this topic?
We're wasting time.
No, we should do it. I think, generally speaking, pepper jack. I love pepper jack on lots of stuff.
You look like a guy who would have a favorite cheese of pepper jack.
Well, it's not fancy, but you can get it. You can still get it at Aldi, but it's just got that
What's
little
Aldi?
extra kick. It's a grocery store.
You mean Acme?
Acme, no.
No, we have an Aldi too. I just don't like it.
Okay.
Hey, so why does the songs that shape us, what does this have to do with leadership? One thing is that songs allow us to share and even just reflect on what we're experiencing. I think music can increase self-awareness.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's one of the things that we're talking about this episode is as a leader, there needs to be a self-awareness and an honesty with what you're experiencing. And so like when you are drawn to a song for a season, or when a season just tends to be on repeat more, I think whether you know it or don't know it, there's probably a reason why that song's connecting with you.
Yeah.
And so I think just being aware of what we're going through and how that song is ministering to you. I think in many ways, I think it just becomes a soul care moment for us. And as leaders, we need that. We need to find ways to have our souls ministered to through songs.
So without further ado, should we just jump into it?
Yeah, let's do it.
Do you want me to share the first song?
Yeah, you're going to notice in this podcast that Richard's songs are very different than my songs.
Yeah.
And it's going to highlight the diversity of our upbringing.
Basically, I'm emo.
and I'm like contemporary Christian from the 90s.
Yeah,
so
you're Chris Tomlin, bro.
Yeah, dude, that's it. So
right.
You start.
The first song that I want to highlight is a Christian song. There's two songs on this list for me that I'll reference that are definitely I think Christian, and then two that are secular. Well, one of my Christian songs, you might disagree if it's Christian or not, depending on how legalistic you are. But the first song for me is How Deep the Father's Love. My favorite version of that has to be out of Austin Stone. Man, I love that one idea that we the song says that you hear yourself crowd among the scoffers. I just rambled on that weird. In other words, I love that moment in that song where you're singing it and you're like, whoa, I would have killed Jesus too. Mm-hmm. For me, that song is just when I hear it, it's one of my favorite songs our church sings. Especially, I'll be honest, I love when my wife leads that song in worship. But I hear that song and I just instantly am reminded of the brutality of the gospel. But in comparison, Jesus was brutally beaten, brutally killed, brutally hurt. But it leads to this overwhelming love and this overwhelming grace. So that's my first song.
When did you first hear that song?
Probably 2000. So I didn't grow up in church, so my whole thing is different. The first time I was working at an African American church, and they sang. I think his name's Stuart Townsend. Mm-hmm. Kind of like a black gospel version of that song. Yeah. I heard it then, and then actually it was at a conference at a friend of ours, Jamie Caldwell's church. Mm-hmm. They were singing it, and it was funny. His niece was playing bass. Her name's Ava, and she struck the bass. And it just, it rings out and she just starts singing it. And it's literally just her and the bass. And I just started weeping like a baby. And I really think the difference was I heard it in the gospel style, more energy, more excitement, very full. But just the simplicity of the music in comparison, almost juxtaposes the intricacy of the lyrics. There's a guy in our church who I saw give his life to Jesus. I think he'll end up being a pastor, deacon in our church. If he's listening to this, that's pressure. But, he was kind of like one of those dudes who's like grips the front of the chair during worship. And then one Sunday we're singing this song and I look back and he just has both hands up and he's weeping. And like, I think this song for me is probably my favorite worship song of all time and the most emotionally gripping.
Because you've seen it work in you and you've seen it work in others.
Yeah, I've seen it change me and my community.
I love the theology of that song. Yeah. I love the richness of it. Yeah. And it's one of those songs that we often close our services with it, or like around the Lord's Supper.
Yeah, same.
Because it's just I think just let people think and really get deep with the gospel, which is good for a leader's life at any point.
Yeah, don't forget the gospel.
So yeah,
it's like the gospel is good news even for no matter where you are in leadership and ministry. The basic truths of the gospel.
Gotcha.
I feel like is the whole thing. So
there we go. Well, I'll do one of mine, and this is going to be a song that will probably get you to laugh at if you even know what this song is. But I grew up listening to Christian music, largely in a Christian music home. That's what we listened to. And of course, this is before Spotify and Apple Music. So any music that we listened to were CDs brought or take cassette tapes.
What is a cassette tape?
It's our logo is literally a cassette tape. And someone's asked me, does Richard even know what a cassette tape was? Have you ever made a mixtape?
I used to use LimeWire, and make CDs for crushes in high school.
So there you go. So that's basically like just a more modern version of what we used to do when we had to start and stop and all this sorts of stuff. So back in the days of cassette tapes, in fact, I had this song on a cassette tape. It was Stephen Curtis Chapman's the song "Great Adventure." And
never heard of it.
Saddle up your horses. Oh yeah, you need to listen to it. That's a line from it.
Can you sing it?
No.
Okay.
Not for a podcast. I'll sing it for you over lunch.
Perfect.
But saddle up your horses. Yeah, we got a trail to blaze to the wild blue yonder of God's amazing grace. And
that's kind of good.
Yeah, it was a fun, adventurous. It's it just kind of called believers toward to live the adventure that Christ has for them and God has for them. But actually, like, it was one of the first kind of contemporary, more acoustic driven songs that I heard. And it actually made me want to play guitar. Wow. And so like, that's here I am. That's what I think. Like, it wasn't just the song. It was what that song inspired in me. It's like, I want to be that guy. I want to learn guitar. I want to play. You're looking it up, aren't you, on your phone right now?
I actually am.
I know you are. It made me want to play guitar. And so I learned guitar. I was somewhere around 13 years old, started learning guitar on that song or songs like that. And like, honestly, that shaped my life because I ended up going to church music to start in ministry. And so it really was just one of those pivotal songs that inspired me to be, in many ways, the leader and pastor I am today. So Can't say I listen to a lot of Stephen Curtis Chapman now, but really loved some of his songs.
To be fair, I've never heard of Stephen Curtis Chapman before.
Dude, I cannot believe that. This is a highlight of our generation.
I got saved in 2012.
Yeah, he was kind of fading. I don't fading, but just not as influential.
Yeah, I know hymns because of, just theological leanings. A lot of the churches I've been in were hymn churches, but also I know like super contemporary. There's like nothing in the middle for me there.
Like his song, I'm diving in, I'm going deep. No, we're going to listen to songs on the way to lunch. Yeah, it's good.
Oh, wow.
But he's actually got a really cool song that I forgot about until we were talking about it. That was my dad we talked about in our first podcast episode, my dad kind of getting beat up in churches a lot, but he wrote a song called His Higher Ways.
Wow.
And it just reflects on the sovereignty of God in the paths of life that we don't want for ourselves or don't see coming.
Wow.
And I remember that ministering to my dad during that season. I remember that being on repeat at our home. So, man, leaders, songs impact your moments. And so
100%.
So there's my first one.
Can I just add a point of context for the listeners? I would say that Phil and I, different experience, different background with it, but both are very musically artsy minded people. Phil, you have tons of worship leading experience. Didn't you even play in college? Wasn't that like a part of your journey?
Yeah. So I started playing guitar when I was 13, and it was before the ages of cell phones and entertainment. We were at my grandparents' house with nothing to do, and it rained all week long.
Yeah.
So my dad happened to have his guitar there, and I was like, teach me a couple chords. And so 13-year-old Phil, just started literally was my whole musical calling and abilities. It was birthed out of boredom.
Yeah.
And so started playing guitar. learned guitar very quickly. Like within 6 months, I was playing proficiently, could play on the worship team. And then they're like, well, we don't actually need a guitar player. Here's a bass. Go learn the bass. So I was like, well, okay, I'll learn the bass. And then like, well, we need you to fill in piano sometimes. So I started learning piano, and then I started learning the drums. And then, but I also played like brass instruments in high school marching band. So just a lot of different instruments that
And
I
you
played.
served as a worship pastor.
Yeah, I came out of college. I went to college on a full ride for playing bass. So I was helping down at Liberty. I was playing bass guitar for Liberty University and Jerry Falwell School.
Yeah.
And I was on a full scholarship for that, leading worship on campus and things like that. So being the bass guitar player is the best gig when it comes to that, because like you just kind of sit in the back and bob your head and then you still make a paycheck. So it's a good way to do it. But played in some jazz trios too over in the weekends. And then, came right out of college leading worship at some big churches until stepped away to do some lead pastor stuff.
Yeah.
You play guitar?
Yeah, I play guitar, play saxophone, play drums.
There you go.
I just learned the mandolin. I love folk
You seem
music.
like a mandolin guy.
Yeah, well, but like not like bluegrass, more like folk, like like a Noah Kahn guy. And I before preaching, I would say this was ministry. I traveled to perform poetry.
Yeah.
So I would say when you're listening to this, just know if this is like weird and you're like, I don't really care about music that much. Phil and I both probably lean into that music artistic side. Second song from me, and I just want to leave a disclaimer here. It's by a Christian band, but there's an explicit version where they drop the F-bomb. Hey, if that offends you, you can just listen to the non-explicit version, but hear me out on why this song had an impact on my life. It's by King's Kaleidoscope. You might also know them as King's MHM. They used to be a part of Mars Hill, broke off when everything got weird. They got ran over by the bus too. But the song is a prayer. Can I say that?
Sure, why
I feel like that's appropriate at this point
You're
in
good.
Christendom. But the song is a prayer. And I never heard this song until when I was battling cancer. We've talked about 4 of our listeners. I got diagnosed with terminal cancer. And I was pastoring a church plant. Tons of people were getting baptized. We were growing. Like there was so much good, but my soul was so disconnected. Like I was so results driven, which I would say even now I wrestle with this desire to like perform or to like achieve. But I heard this song. I loved King's Kaleidoscope. I just never heard this. I loved their versions of hymns. In fact, like How Deep the Father's Love, I love their version of that song. And I was like sitting in my living room. My dog's asleep. My wife's in the other room asleep. And I was just mad at God, frustrated about being sick. I think I had treatment the next day, which basically meant I was going to be sick for a week. So this song just came on like on Spotify or Apple Music on Shuffle. And I'll just read these lyrics real quick, just part of them. It says, will I fail or will I misstep? Will I call you with my last breath? Will you be there for me after? Will I waste inside the silence where the fear is? And in some versions it says vicious violent. In some versions it says the F word violent. Wicked sinner thrown to lions with no hope on the horizon. Will I fail or will I misstep? And I heard those lyrics at a time when I was struggling, not necessarily with sin, but with this weird, I guess sin, this idol of like success. I was sick. I was angry at God. I was contemplating life and death to a severe degree. And then if you know the song or if you listen to it, it dies out of this like, this kind of stripped down question, almost psalm like God, what's going to happen moment. It dies down. There's like a heartbeat drum that dies, and then suddenly the song explodes with tons of, it's like a full orchestra. And the lyric is, I'm right beside you. I feel what you feel. I'm here to hold you when death is too real. You know I died too. I was terrified. I gave myself for you. I was crucified because I love you. And the song, very artistic. It's not like a song you jam to, but this like die down moment, like the death, the questioning, the darkness explodes into glorious gospel light. Dude, I wept on my couch for an hour and then listened to it again and then puked. Like I was like, that song sent me. So now for me, that song, like whenever we have someone in the church who's like, man, I just, a Lamentations moment. I'm like, hey, do you want to hear a song that might like reflect where you are right now? So
That's so
that
good.
song for me just allowed me. And even I give it to all our leaders. Like when people in our church struggle, I'm like, hey, go listen to the song. I give them the clean version. But like that die down, when the music stops, when the noise stops, when the questions stop, God loves you.
Well,
He's there.
I think that highlights 2 things I think that are important to mention. You're driven toward poetry already. Like you love lyrics, you love,
And I'd say that's a poetic song.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
So I bet you that probably like just hits both of your creative sides of music. and poetry. I'm not much of a poet. Like I just never been able to get into it. So I lean more toward the musicality and things like that, and the theology, but I'm not as good about like putting together like lyrics in that regard. But the other thing I'd say, I love how you took that song and you use that song to minister to others. Like that's one of the points even we want with this episode is you can use songs as a leader to 100%. Encourage and care for your people. Like, here's a song that I think would really be good for you. I've done that before. I can't remember who. I was just having a conversation with somebody who was struggling with a few things in his life, and there was just a song that popped to my mind, and a worship song. I said, here's a song I think that's going to really help you in this moment. So,
dude, and pastors listening, but also just ministry leaders. Hey, this podcast is for you as well, regardless of role. Yep. Don't be afraid to use music when you don't have the words. Mm-hmm. I feel like we'll try to have the words, and sometimes it's just like, hey, this song is what you're saying.
You know, there's something this is not going to be this episode because we're a little random right now as we're kind of starting our recording, but we should talk about how songs can, like certain songs for the season of a church. Like, have you noticed that? How like just a song your church grabs onto 100%. For worship. So this song is probably not going to bring ministry to you. But one of my second song, you might know this band, Richard. My second song that has been influential to me was To Hell with the Devil by Stryper. Do you know who Stryper is?
I actually like Stryper.
Yeah, I do too.
I found some of their music, yeah.
And again, this kind of goes back to just my own musical development, less than they're definitely rocky. So when I started learning bass guitar on our worship team, we were a church plant in Massachusetts, and we had a guy that played piano who was a Berklee College of Music jazz major. So like Berklee College of Music is like one of the premier music schools in the country, and so
it's like the bigwigs.
He's top notch jazz musician. Our drummer played in a Stryper tribute band. And so he'd dress up in the Stryper outfits and he'd play double bass drum, big songs. So you mash those two people together on a worship team. And so I was introduced to Stryper, and I remember I was lifeguarding at the beach that summer when I was introduced to Stryper. And I would listen to it on like the mandatory workouts they'd make you go through to kind of be ready to rescue people. And I just remember listening, like, this is kind of fun. And I liked the lyrics. I liked the sound. It gave me energy. And it just was something different I never listened to before. But that was like that was on repeat the summer after I graduated high school. And it really was it kind of shaped me both as a musician because I was playing with a drummer that liked Stryper. So I learned how to play like Stryper. But it's just kind of a different way of looking at music than like Stephen Curtis Chapman or some of the other Christian music I've heard. They got kind of a cool sound to them. Yeah. And I can never sing like them.
Yeah. I like Stryper. I'm a huge fan of Christian music that doesn't necessarily sound like worship music.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's one of the first bands I heard like that.
Yeah, and especially probably back in that time, that wasn't as common.
No.
You know, now we have like, Christian rap, I think, has done a lot to progress that.
Right.
But, you know, back then, you just had Stryper, Relient K. They were one of them. Mm-hmm. Who was the other one that I've heard? I actually like Relient K, too. Yeah. No, that's awesome.
It's a fun episode of just random music.
Yeah. If you hate it, listen to the next one. Hey, my third one, another secular song. Actually, my last two are. It's While My Guitar Gently Weeps by the Beatles. It's actually by George Harrison. Then the Beatles performed it, and then Tom Petty took it, then Prince took it. But really, just very simply, if you know the song, it's melodic, it's poetic, it's super stripped down. Two things came out of that. One, it was the first song I ever heard where I was like, whoa, I want to write like that. Mm-hmm. This song is part of why I started writing poetry. I loved the metaphor and the symbolism. It's also, I think, hugely influential for me. I love raw, stripped down music.
Yeah.
Like less production, which is weird because I love King's Kaleidoscope and they have an orchestra.
It's massively produced. Yeah.
Yeah. And that kind of but this for me was a starting point of like, man, like I could just grab a guitar and strum some chords and write a poem. And I could make people feel, even before I was a believer, that to me was like a cool experience. So,
well, and that's like my daughter loves that kind of music. She loves where you just almost just hang a mic in the middle of the room and it's really raw and you can just tell they're not editing it. They're just taking it.
Yeah. Like our podcast.
It's just, we just go for it. Right.
Yeah. I love it, man. So it feels human.
Yeah. I think that's what we're looking for, our music to feel human.
Yeah.
And to reach into and this sounds a lot cheesy, reach into our humanity.
And I think that's why today, especially artists, Zach Bryan, Noah Kahn, even Gracie Abrams, obviously you can find issues with those if, you don't like secular music, but a lot of the music that's popular today, I think it kind of matches the cultural shift, which ministry leaders, here's something to recognize. People value, I think, in this time, transparency, authenticity, humanity above production, performance. So like, if that's true with the music they're listening to, one, relax, worship leader. It's okay if your band isn't like a full production, but also to the side note of that, like, I think that's something that I see even in our church. People crave authenticity over like quality, which is interesting to me.
Yeah, I some of my favorite worship moments in person have not been the full big band, highly produced, lights flashing, LED wall going nuts. Yeah. But like some of my favorite worship breakdowns is like just a guitar and a cajon and maybe a couple singers and like just the sound of the congregation, and really just you can tell that they believe what they're singing 100%. And they're leading you into that. So I agree that there's an authenticity that I think that applies not just to our music but to our leadership. I'm gonna go to one of my songs by it's actually a whole album. In 2013, there's an album released by Ren Collective called Campfire, and it was actually very similar to that feel. It's like I think they actually produced it just like their band sitting around a campfire playing these songs. That was the whole vibe for this.
I love Ren Collective.
Yeah, it's so good. And but somewhere around 2015 was when I went through like a 1.5, 2 year season of depression and discouragement, and God was convicting me of some things in my life. God was bringing me out of a hard time in ministry leadership, and all those things were hitting at once to lead to like just a really dark season. And this song was on my car every time I was working on a sermon. This album was being played, because I found so much life in the lyrics that they did, and particularly the two songs, like "Come On, My Soul," like what a good song! Like, "Come on, my song, let down your walls, sing my soul." I mean, that's just not a complicated lyrics, but that's kind of what I needed right there. It's like, "Come on, soul, like what's going on?" And then, and the second song, which I guess I'm going to make this count as one song. Don't yell at me. But the second song on that album was "The Desert Soul." That was really like, "All that I am is dry bones. Without you, Lord, I'm a desert soul."
Dude. So freaking good, bro.
I'm broken, but I'm running towards you, God, make me whole. That was literally what that gave articulation to the depression and the struggle that I was going in.
Yeah, you just named the whole album, basically.
Yeah,
the whole album is that good.
Yeah, the whole album has that same theme. Yeah. And so it really did some soul care to me.
We have time for one more each quickly.
You can do yours.
And then you're going to do yours.
Maybe.
You're doing it. I'm looking at it and I want to hear the story. Hey, so not a Christian album. Welcome to the Black Parade, My Chemical Romance. I grew up listening to grungy rock, emo rock. What I loved about it was the entire album was one story, song to song, which was popular for like rock albums in like the 60s, 70s, 80s. Like Queen did that a lot, like that opera rock ballad thing. Yep. I love it. There's a song on there called Cancer, which is like super depressing and odd that I'm, love that song. But one of the lines is like, the hardest part of this is leaving you. Bro, that obviously hit me when I had cancer, but really that whole album is just this like non-Christian, but I think there's some Christ-like metaphors of death, destruction, restoration, renewal. So for me, I love storytelling. So I love how the album is a story.
Yeah.
And what's cool is a lot of people, most popular album they've ever had, people love individual songs. And I've loved just being like, hey, listen to the whole album. And people will be like, whoa, everything's connected. And then I've literally shared the gospel by showing people that album, being like, hey, kind of like the story of the world. And I know that sounds cheesy, but like for me, I love meta narrative. So yeah. That's
so good.
It just tickles my brain. Dave Matthews story. We want to hear.
You want to hear the Dave Matthews story? Okay.
We have just enough time.
Well, this is kind of lame, but this is kind of a lame compared to some of the things we've already shared. But growing up, like, again, we lived in a pastor's home. We just did not have access to a lot of some of the songs that you're mentioning. Some of the bands, like my parents listened to Simon and Garfunkel, was about as secular as we got, which is kind of
Troubled Water.
Yeah, there you go.
Sound of Silence.
There you go. So some good stuff. But like, I remember I found a Dave Matthews CD on a run, like off the side of the road, like somebody like threw it out of their car and it was on the side of the road. And so I started to listen to Dave Matthews Band. Was one of the first kind of like whole secular album that I listened to in my teenage years, like outside of just I know.
Just led you astray, bro. So tame too.
It was super tame. It didn't lead me astray, but it actually kind of helped me musically because I really liked the style. I really liked the sound. And I kind of like learned a lot of things about playing bass guitar from that album. But I just remember just like almost feeling kind of like, I don't want to use the word bad, but kind of feeling like rebellious, like listening to Dave Matthews with my headphones on because he sounded like he sounds. And so that was the one thing I will say. Hey, one of the songs I'm listening to right now, do you have a song on right now that you're listening to? But do you ever hear Mission House?
Yeah.
There's a band called Mission House and a song that I listened to like 3 times on the drive down here called Faith More Precious Than Gold.
Wow.
Very raw, like we talked about. But it said, the lyrics go like this: we've suffered all kinds of grief, tasted a bitter cup of defeat, but out of bitterness comes something sweet, our faith more precious than gold.
Wow.
How good is that?
That's a word.
And the lyrics just, it's just got me like really resonating with a lot of areas. And I don't even know why it's resonating right now, but it's like,
yeah,
it's been really like a worship song in my car right now. And you can thank Pam. Pam was the one that I can thank Pam. Pam hooked me up with that band, and that kind of led me to that song.
Dude, I have a question.
Sure.
Nickelback, yes or no?
I don't know that I have a strong opinion on it, but I love to like.
It's like politics. You just don't.
Yeah,
want to
yeah.
share.
Well, yeah. We can talk about politics. Yeah. Well, no, it's not true. Like I haven't listened to Nickelback enough to be like yes or no, but I do know that people are so divisive on it. I love to like just throw it in there. Like if somebody I know hates Nickelback, like I'll wear a Nickelback t-shirt just to poke at them. But,
I love it.
So it's totally just being confrontational. So yeah, whether you like Nickelback or not, this is the podcast. This is a podcast for you, and we love you. And so, hey, as ministry leaders, think about your songs that are how they've shaped your soul. Think about how you can use them to teach others, and just think about how we can grow as people God's a creative God, and it's given us these gifts to help us to grow, to do soul care, to serve others. And so let's be active and intentional with our songs.
There's a quote there.
Oh yeah,
it's a good way to end. Creation in the micro points to the creation of the Lord. I heard that. And it was like this like non-Christian guy. And when he said Lord, he just meant this ambiguous God. But hey, just know when you're doing things creatively, not like when you're creating, if you do it well, pursue excellency. It points to the beauty of the Creator. Mm-hmm. We only can create because He created us. God can teach us from all different places. Amen. So I love it. Well, hey, thanks for listening to this episode of the Ministry Mix podcast. If you found something valuable in our discussion, make sure you hit the like and subscribe button or whatever you need to hit so that way you don't miss an episode. And if you'd like, we'd love for you to take a minute and review us. Your feedback helps us reach more leaders. If you got questions or topics you'd love to hear about, connect with us on social media and let us know. Maybe Richard and I will release an album together of all your favorite songs in the future. But until next time, keep leading with purpose and caring for your soul. Should we do that? A really bad cover, like out of key.
That would be great. Hey, thanks again for listening. And until next time, let's keep leading with purpose and caring for your soul.
Bye.